Okay, so this is going to be my first in a series of faction previews for GridWars 2.0. And they're not going to be truly in depth of how to best play the cards or what cards are strongest. They're just going to be a rundown of what each card can do and maybe some thoughts on which ones have me particularly excited. I'm not a hugely competitive player in general, and as of now, I have not played enough games to thoroughly analyze the cards. Maybe I'll do more of a review after I've got a lot of games down, but we'll see what happens with that. So the first faction is going to be what's probably my favorite currently, and that's the Sakara Corporation. Now in the lore, the Sakara Corporation colonized Titan in order to make bank on the moon's nitrogen deposits. With the influx of workers and researchers, the independent Titan city was found. Sakara, however, never lost its grasp on Titan, being the center of its economy, trade, and power dynamics. The massive wealth accumulated by Sakara allows its employees to be technologically one step ahead of everyone else. Outside the grid, no organization or government on Titan was able to resist its will, and its will is always more wealth. So of course, the abilities of the Titan Corporation, the Sakara Corporation, come down to the Titan coins mechanics. So at the beginning of the game, you will be able to place down 5 Titan coin tokens, 3 if you're in the smaller battle, and you can spend these coins for corporation abilities throughout the game. And each unit can also take advantage of the pay protection ability, which at the end of its turn, you can pay 2 coins to gain 1 shield. There's a little bit of debate about whether this ability is too expensive for what you get, but we'll have to see as games get played how useful it seems. Now, there's only the 5 coins that you start with, but there are quite a few ways to generate quite a few coins, so you should be able to take advantage of at least a couple abilities in each round. So having said that, that's a little rundown on how the faction is supposed to work. Let's dive into the individual units. Let's start off the card preview with Marcus Crown, the CEO of the Sakara Corporation. Now the factions in Grid Wars don't have designated leaders or anything that rules to go along with leadership. However, I'd say there's no doubt that as CEO, Marcus Crown is the leader of the corporation faction. He appears to be a big sort of domineering man. He's got a cigar in one hand, a power suit, and a pistol in the other hand. You can see he's got some body modifications around the chin and head. And so I'd like to sort of consider him a ramped up version of a billionaire CEO that we'd find in the real world. Sort of like an Elon Musk taken to the 10th degree. If you imagine like Elon wasn't so focused on Twitter and was more focused on the grid. Yeah, just a little less silly than Elon, but no less dangerous, I guess. So yeah, his first ability there, the passive ability, is the Sakara President. At the beginning of his turn, he will generate 1 Titan coin. So if the round is going to, or if the game is going to go on for 5 or 6 rounds, you want to try and keep Marcus Crown alive as long as possible to generate all those extra coins that you can put into the abilities of the corporation. Okay, you've got the engineering, hacking, and IDS stat line. That's his defense against hacking, 2s across the board, which is pretty good. He's got a mastery in both melee and range attacks. He's got a movement of 4, an armor of 1, and a health rating of 6, which is about above average, I would say, for the human characters. Well, you know, his 4 in movement is about average for the humans. So his first attack is strong arming. With on damage, he will gain a throw and against the target. So that throw plus 2 action gives him a heavier rating, so he can potentially throw guys that are a little bit bigger than him that he wouldn't normally be able to throw with a regular throw action. He's got the designer pistol, which has a range of 6, which is pretty standard for the pistols in the game. It's also a plasma weapon, which allows him to overcharge it to gain an additional dice and armor piercing. However, the risk there is that any blanks will come back as damage on him. Then he has this ability in green, which is a unique order, so you can only use it once per turn. But it's also free to use and doesn't cost any energy. But he'll have to pay 3 Titan coins, and another ally within 6 hex radius of him gains a move, charge, or attack action. I feel like this one's a little expensive for what it does, but in the right moment it could be sort of game-changing, so you'll have to feel that out a little bit. But 3 coins is a lot to use that easily when there's a lot of people in the corporation that want to be using those coins. And then his final one is the hostile takeover, which once per round he can spend 2 coins to apply stun to an enemy who activates. That could be pretty good. I mean, it's still expensive at 2 coins, but putting a stun marker on an opponent just reduces them to basically 1 action right away. So it could prevent one of your units from dying, or someone capturing an objective or something like that. So it could be useful. So next up we have the Chief Technical Officer, Dr. Prince. She comes in at 34 points. Her passive ability there gives her, once per turn, she may gain an engineering or hacking action. So that's pretty good. It basically makes her, as long as she's going to want to make use of one of those actions, it makes her always a 3-action character, which actually is what she was in GridWars 1.0. There was a different designation for how many actions you got, and they just found a way to incorporate it in her while cutting that stat out. As the technical officer, you see she's really good with both engineering and hacking, which is good. Her hacking defense is still pretty good as well. Some mastery, the standard move, and I'd say the 4 is probably about a standard human health, maybe 4 or 5. Her first attack is spinning knives, and on damage it applies the DOT, which is damage over time. So when those icons are on a character, at the beginning of their activation, they will take a damage for each token. So she can try to spread those out and put them on different characters. She also has the template flamer, the large flamer, which is pretty huge in game. It covers a good section of the grid. Maybe I'll, if my editing skills are up there, I'll try and include a quick image of the flamer template in the corner. But if not, you'll have to look at the rules yourself. And then she has this gray engineering ability, which is unique, so she can only use it once per turn. However, it's pretty powerful if used in the right moment. So you and all allies in combat with one enemy that is adjacent to you gain a melee attack action against that enemy. So if you have 3 or 4 characters that manage to surround one character, you can take that moment to get all your attacks in from each of those characters. So pretty powerful in the right moment, but maybe difficult to set up. And then we have the data leak. So that's a direct hack, also unique with a difficulty of 6. So target one enemy in range 8, and that enemy receives 2 hits. And you gain 1 Titan coin for each damage dealt. So if they don't prevent those hits, you're going to get some coins. So it's another way to generate coins that are being spent kind of quickly with this faction. So next up we have Carl Armstrong, who is the Chief of Operations. And he appears to be a dwarf, which I believe is into the cyberpunk lore a little bit. As we get beyond sort of the normal factions, you'll find that there are some orcs and trolls and elves and dwarves, perhaps like Shadowrun style cyberpunk. But when I first got this guy, I played him quite a bit, and rather than considering him sort of a fantasy dwarf, I like to sort of picture him as being like a real-world little person. You know, a little bit like Peter Dinklage's character in the Christmas movie Elf. He's sort of got a cameo there where he's this corporate guy. He's a writer. He's a jerk, but he's excelled in his field. And I like to picture that's sort of what this guy is. He's he's excelled in his field. He's good at what he does. So his being a little person has been overlooked by the corporation. Maybe a nice heartfelt story for the corporation where they just accept this guy for who he is. But maybe he's just supposed to be a dwarf, a fantasy-style dwarf. I don't know. But he's got a Chief of Operations ability there, which at the beginning of his round, choose an enemy unit, and that unit has to be activated last. That's not going to be that huge deal early in the game, but later in the game when you're going to be close and everyone's going to be able to get attacks in on the turn, and you can make one of your opponents' nearly dead units go last, or one of their heaviest hitters go last, that could be pretty important. So he's got the good engineering, the good hacking defense, and just pretty good hacking as well. This is, all the executive characters that we find in the corporation are pretty good at this, I think. He's got great melee mastery. Okay, with the 1 in the range mastery. He only moves 3. He's got the shorter legs. I guess he can't go quite as far, but that will limit him a bit. 1 armor, and 8 health, which is pretty great. He'll be able to throw people, which there's some, a little silliness there, having the smallest guy having such a great throw, but I like it. He also has the paralyzing grip for his attack, so on damage, apply stun. We've talked about stun a little bit earlier, but it really limits the opposing character to 1 action in their turn. He's got this really powerful second attack called Call in the Airstrike. Now, it costs him a Titan coin to use it, but he can attack anywhere with an AoE within range 12. And if you want to spend 2 Titan coins, you can make that range to 30. So basically attacking anywhere on the grid. I do believe you still need line of sight for this to work. There's nothing there that says it doesn't. But still, if you can see a straight line, you can basically hit the furthest point on that line. And it's going to be worth checking with the creators to make sure that line of sight is in fact needed. Okay, his hacking ability is a net hack, so he can use it at a terminal to gain an additional coin. So as we talked about, the coins are really important to this faction. So the more abilities to collect them, the better, I believe. And then there at the end, picking up the slack. When another ally in a 3-hex radius receives damage, you can redirect 1 of that damage to Carl. So that's great. He's got the 8 hit points, so he can take a little bit of extra damage to let your other troops survive a bit longer. And then we have JJ Preston, the chief of HR, who just looks like he would be the greatest guy to go talk to if you're having some HR problems at work. He looks like he'd be very reasonable. But his great stat here is that when another non-executive ally in a 3-hex radius begins its turn, you may pay 1 Titan coin to do a move, attack, or charge action, which that can be very powerful. You can stack that with some other abilities where they have an option of paying a coin to take an action at the end of their turn, so they can technically get up to 4 actions their turns, and I'll reference that later when we come across those characters. He's a little lower in the stats line for hacking, engineering, and hacking defense, but I think that should be expected. Looking at this guy, he's a big brute. He's probably not great in the corporate environment and is more a bruiser on the field. He's got the 1 melee and range mastery. He also only moves 3. He's a bit of a lumbering sort of giant on the field. And he's got the 1 armor and 7 health. His first attack here, the Soul Crush, is his melee attack. So on damage, your range attacks will gain 1 for each damage dealt until the end of the turn. So that's really only going to be great if you finish off an opponent because you are going to be locked in combat as it is. But it does do 2 damage. So each hit that gets through is going to count as 2. And so if you wind up killing the character, to say you do 4 damage, your next attack is going to have a range of 12, basically. 12 with your furthest weapon and 8 with the grenade. So speaking of the grenade, that's a plasma weapon, so you can charge it if needed, but take hits on blanks. And it's a template weapon, so if your opponent has clustered some guys together, it's a great opportunity to try and take them out. But even better is this beam weapon, the Infinity, and it's also plasma, so you can charge it, but it'll hit everyone in a straight line. So if you can combine Soul Crush and then follow it up with the Infinity attack, you could maybe get a lot of guys. Like if there's a couple guys in a line over 12, like maybe 3 guys even, you can potentially do damage to all of them, which is pretty powerful. And then his last ability is if he takes 2 or more damage in total from his own plasma overcharges in a single turn, he gains a charge action. So if he does 2 separate attacks that are charged as plasma weapons, he can then wind up with a charge action afterwards if he took some damage from those. And then we have the Chief of Medicine, Cuddy Gray, which is a great medical drama show name if you like those sort of things. And she sort of leads the team of medics. So part of the lore includes that the Sakara Corporation has sort of privatized and taken healthcare under its branch. So they control the healthcare in the city, which means that in faction, they have a lot of healing capabilities as they deploy those medical officers. So as the Chief of Medicine, Cuddy Gray will support all other allied medics in the 4-hex radius. They have +1 melee and range mastery, making them a little bit better on the offensive. She's got good engineering, hacking, and a little bit of defense. Not as good in melee, but still okay with the range mastery. She moves 4, 1 armor, 5 hit points. She has this Maxim M1 rifle, which has a range of 10, 2 dice, and 1 damage. But she has these 3 abilities down here which she can be used to charge up that weapon. So she can choose to convert it into an antimatter round, which it gains 1 dice, an EMP weapon. EMP weapons don't let your opponent use energy to block damage, and they'll also lose any energy they have on them. She could also convert it into the exploding rounds, which will give her 2 armor penetration and 1 damage. Or the third option, which has a typo currently because it should not be exploding rounds, it's healing gun at this point. So you can target your own units and heal them a little bit. It looks like each of these can only be done once per round. That's designated by the star. But it looks like if you converted it to, say, the antimatter round, it would be that gun even in the next round without you having to use that ability again. That's going to need some clarification from the Cyberforge staff, but that's the way as written. It doesn't say it expires at the end of the round. It just says you can only use it once per round to convert the weapon. So if you think you're going to want to be one of these weapons for a little while, or even the healing one, you can convert and just not worry about having to spend that action to do it. And I guess now spending the action I see doesn't matter anyways because these are all quick actions. You can do it once per round, but they're quick actions. And going with the medics, this is Lincoln Chase. He's just a regular medic, part of the trauma team. So all the trauma team characters will have this ability here, which is at the beginning of their turn, they can restore 1 hit point to 1 ally in a 3-hex radius. So you want to keep these guys close to your other corporation units to try and heal them at the start of their turn. He's got a little bit more engineering than hacking, but still a good defense against it. He does not have any mastery, but those can be boosted if he's with Cuddy Gray. Standard move and standard health. He's got the Sakara Tech Gun, which is a pistol, range 6, 3 dice. It's pretty standard. He's got this green ability, the Stimulant Injection, so you can deal damage to yourself to increase your ranged attacks by 2 range and gain critical strike, so that's pretty good. That'll cost you 1 energy to do that. He's got an Immortality Field, which can be pretty powerful late in the game, but you pay 1 coin and 1 material, and until the end of the round, adjacent allies to Lincoln Chase, their remaining hit points cannot be reduced below 1, so they can't die so long as they're adjacent to him. So you can try and keep your guys in a cluster, making your opponent have to target him first, or just sort of find the right time for that. He also has this Corpo Insurance at the end, so once he dies in an enemy's turn, you gain 1 Titan coin. So that's you'll find that on a couple of guys, but another way of getting some coins even though you're losing your own guys. So Remy Yang is very similar to the last guy we saw, Lincoln Chase. He's got the same trauma team ability. He's not an engineer and has no defense against hacking, but he's got okay hacker himself. No mastery, he moves 4, and he's got 4 hit points. Now, it says here he has the Sakara Tech Gun, which is the pistol that we saw with Lincoln Chase, but his model has a machine gun, and in GridWars 1, that was represented in his stats as well. So this may get changed as the first cards have just come out, and we may find that he's supposed to have a machine gun, but we're not sure yet. He's got the Secret Serum ability, which you can pay 1 coin for 1 ally in a 3-hex radius to restore a hit point and gain an energy. That's kind of expensive, but if you healed 1 with your trauma team and healed 1 here, you might have brought some guy up to who was on death's door up to 3 health again, so that might not be too bad. The Cyber Contamination, the enemies in a 6-hex radius cannot restore HP into the end of the round. This is a little more situational because not all of the opposing factions will have healing abilities, but it's good to have this option. And then after Remy Yang is destroyed in the enemy's turn, you'll gain a coin. Just like Lincoln Chase, it's like an insurance stat. So again, if you take a couple of these medics, you can be healing a lot, and they may get targeted for that reason, and you'll gain coins, which can then lead to you having stronger abilities as well. And then the last one of the trauma team, we have Ajay, I'm not sure the pronunciation of that name, but she's a little different from the other two. She's got a little different stats, but we'll go through those in a second. So she's got the same trauma team passive ability, the 2 engineering, but 0s in all the hacking. No mastery, no armor, but she moves 4 and has 4 health. So instead of being focused on the medkit style like the other two trauma team members were, she's got these electrical paddles, which she can also use as a weapon, which is kind of fun. It applies stun, and it's great for getting through armor. So that's a really unique side of you taking her. If you're looking at taking a couple of trauma team members for the healing, she's got this melee attack that cuts through armor, which could be pretty unique. She's still got the same pistol, which is fair use. And then she has research samples, like remove all condition tokens from one ally in a 3-hex radius. And gain 1 coin for each different token removed this way. So that could be a pretty good one if you've got a guy who's gotten stunned and blind and immobilized. And then the last one, clear. Once per round when an ally adjacent to her would be destroyed, roll a d6. If the result is equal to or higher than the ally's health statistic, the ally survives with 1 health remaining. That one's going to be tough to do because she really needs to be healing people who are stats 3, 4, 5, and 6, I guess. And that's a hard roll to get if you're going for the 6, but it might not be too situational. You can keep some of the other trauma officers alive. So there we have Miss Holloway, and she was probably my favorite character in all of Grid Wars version 1. She was definitely overpowered. Now she's been brought down to a power level that makes sense for her now. But really it came down to she cost about the same. I think she was 26 points. These stats are relatively similar, but it all came down to her ranged attack. So in the Grid Wars 1.0, her range attack was 8 dice, but it was subtracted 1 for each hex above 4 that you were from your opponent. So if you were attacking them from 6 hexes away, you'd only have 6 dice. But I just used it to try to get 4 within 4 hexes and dropped 8 dice. And for 25 or 6 points, that was a huge attack that you were getting for the points. So she was just not well balanced, and I think they've brought her into line a bit better. We'll go over her stats here, though. First of all, she's got this Schedule Keeper. So Schedule Keeper combined with her look, it makes me feel a little bit like she's an administrative assistant or a secretary, which I think is cool. I think I like to think of her as being like, if you know those sort of assistants or secretaries who have been there long term, they almost wind up sort of like being a boss in the office on their own. And I picture that being what Miss Holloway would be like. She's a bit of a powerhouse, and I picture her being bossy, and like only really the executives would be able to, boss her around a bit. Probably even just Marcus Cran. So she's a Schedule Keeper. So an allied executives in a 4-hex radius can change 1 energy to result to a hit without spending any energy. So that's a great ability. I didn't read that super clearly, but basically they can always change 1 energy result to a hit or save without spending any energy of their own. She's an okay hacker, but not much else there. She's got no mastery in melee, but she's got the 1 for ranged. She moves 4 and has 4 health. So then she has her Sakara Tech Uzi, which has a range of 9, which is great. It only has the 3 dice, but if the opponent is next to an allied executive, it goes up to 5 dice and gains precision. Precision lets you shoot into to combat without worrying about hitting your friendly fire. There's no friendly fire risk when you shoot into combat with precision. The Mindfulness Seminar, which is a great name if you're at all in the business world or government world or corporate world. There's a lot of mindfulness talk that goes on sometimes. So she can pay 1 coin to remove all conditions from all allies in a 4-hex radius. This is a pretty powerful one. Again, it's a little bit weakened from Grid Wars 1.0 because she can no longer remove the wanted tokens from the Titan City Police Department. But that's probably a good thing because, again, she was kind of overpowered in the first version of this game. And then she has budget management. She rolls a d6, and if the result is higher than the number of your current Titan coins, you gain a coin. So again, just another option to get more coins flowing through the corporation. And then finally, their Poster Girl. When Miss Holloway receives damage, she may redirect all of that damage to 1 allied exec in a 4-hex 4 hex radius. So that's good. She doesn't have a lot of health, but she's got some staying power because she can transfer her health around. Now, not a lot of the execs can take too much damage, but you remember, I think it was Carl Armstrong had 8 damage, so she can, put a little bit on him and maybe put some on JJ Preston, and she'll last a long time. So then we have Agatha Starberger, who's a unique one. I've never gotten to play her, but I love the model, and I have her printed and painted up, and I'm looking forward to try her in version 2 of the game. She's just, she's got no attacks, but she's a major hacker, and she looks like she should be. She's got the hand to the head, should be, glitching through the grid, causing havoc on the opponents there. So she's got the Cortex Crack. When Agatha uses a hacking action, she may attempt 1 additional direct hack. So that's great because all she really wants to do is hacking actions. And so she has 2 direct hacks. She can use both of those and then use 2 of the generic ones from the rulebook. So there's 4 or 5 there, I think, or maybe just 4. Direct hacks from the book, so she can be getting away with doing up to 4 per turn if she's not doing her green attack. Her green ability, which is a free ability, so I guess it doesn't matter. She'd get to do that too. So she uses the free ability. She can pay 1 coin to gain 4 range to her direct hacks. Now those hacks are already a range of 8, so she can bump those up to 12. Now she has the Rapid Corrosion, so apply the number of damage over time tokens to the target enemy in range 8 equal to its armor statistics. So you can target an enemy who maybe has 2 or 3 armor and then just put these damage over time tokens on it. That's a pretty strong one. And then the Synapsis Override, she can target the enemy in range 8 and the target enemy in range 8 gains an attack action against another enemy, and you choose the profile and target. So that's great. A little mind control where the opponent winds up using his own units against itself, and I love that thematically, and I think it's going to be really good in the game. And this gold passive ability is just great. After each successful direct hack, Agatha may dash 2. So we already talked about she's going to get a potential 4 hacks in a game or a round. She could, if they're all successful, she's going to have moved 8 across the board and just dashing here and there. So thematically, I think this is one of the better characters in the faction. She really fits this elite hacker sort of appeal, and I'm looking forward to trying her out. The Amplificator version 4. So obviously this is just a giant mech that is going to lay down a lot of dice in combat and be difficult to remove from the board. It's got the data encryption ability here, which all other allies in 4 hex radius cannot be targeted by direct hacks. So that's a huge boost right there. If you want to keep within 4 of this guy, some of your more sensitive hackable units, they're just not even an option when this guy's on the board. No engineering, no hacking, but he's resistant to hacks on his own. No mastery. It moves a slow 3, but 3 armor and 8 hit points. So he's got some staying power for sure. He's got this Mecha Stomp, which it costs him an energy to use, but it will apply stun. It's only 2 dice, but it does 2 damage per hit. You also have the dual turrets, which I think are his best weapon. It's got a range 9 and attacks twice. So basically you're going to drop 6 dice per attack, so 12 dice in one attack session. If you use that one twice, that's a pretty heavy overload of attacks. So we'll see how that plays out on the board. And the thermal missile is a little more situational, but if you cannot see your weapon or see your enemy, you can use this seeking weapon, which basically you're shooting the missile that's going to go around corners. And it turns all the masteries also hits, which is good because he has no mastery as it is. And you can pay 1 coin to get 1 energy and 1 mastery in both the melee and ranged. I don't know if I would do this a lot with him. I think he's already looking pretty good, but situationally we'll see how that plays out. Now we're into the mercenaries of the group, so Mr. Smith. So I spoke earlier about having some powers that stack, and with JJ Preston, at the beginning of his turn, he can pay 1 coin to give a move, charge, or attack to a non-executive within 3 hexes. Well, Mr. Smith himself can, at the beginning of his turn, pay 1 coin to get him a move action. So if he starts within 3 of JJ Preston can give him an attack action with 1 coin. Then Mr. Smith can pay 1 coin for his own move and then do 2 attacks from there or continue to move depending, what the game calls for. But really, he's going to have the opportunity to get 4 different activations in one turn, which is really powerful. He's got an okay engineering skill, no hacking, and some good hacking defense. Excellent mastery in both melee and ranged. He's got a good move and pretty good armor and health. So he's got this crushing punch in melee. So before the attack, you can spend 1 energy to attack with extra +2 dice. So it's already a 4 dice, moving up to 6. That's pretty great. Spending 1 energy feels like a good use of energy if you're in melee. He's got his range 9 Sakara Tech machine gun. So it's got precision, 4 dice, range 9. No complaints about that. He's great, especially with that 3 range mastery. Now he has this engineering ability that his next attack this turn gains ignore cover, and the damage from it cannot be prevented by shields. That's very situational, but if you have an opponent who's dug in and with either shields or cover, you can remove that ability. And then his single motivation is after his attack, if it deals no damage to its target, you can pay 1 coin for him to gain an additional attack. So up to 5 attacks there if one of them happens to fail. Then we have Mrs. Smith, who is very similar to the Mr. Smith we just saw. She has the same passive abilities, so she can gain an extra move for a coin. She could also be getting double stacked with JJ Preston, so very similar to Mr. Smith. She doesn't have the engineering like Mr. Smith, but she does have the hacking ability and the hacking defense. The mastery is great there as well. She has the 4 move, a little bit lower health, but she has a lower cost as well, so that sort of balances out. Her combat knife ability is pretty good, not quite as good as Mr. Smith's crushing punch, but again, she is a few points cheaper. She's got the exact same machine gun though, and this great blue direct hack, where your next range attack against a target enemy in range 8, this turn gains +2 dice and change all energy results to hits. So if you can, pick out a target that you're going to want to use your next range attack on, you'll get an extra 2 dice. You attack by 6 dice, and all energy results will turn to hits without having to spend an energy. So that's pretty strong too. Then she also has the pay protection. She can pay 1 coin to re-roll all blanks and change all energy results to saves in her defense roll. So you can use that one when you see her, about to expire, I guess we'll say. When she's at risk, you can use that ability to keep her on the board. Seirin Torifu, which is, I guess, an elf-like assassin of the corporation. I think she's pretty good. I don't love her as much thematically, but definitely good on the board. She's a little expensive at 32 points, but she's got this ability here that once per turn, after she attacks with the enemy from behind, she gains another melee attack against enemy. So she's good with like the backstab sort of thing, which if she can sneak in there, that's a great attack because her red katana attack is a critical strike, 3 dice, 1 armor piercing, so nothing to complain about there. Plus she's got the mastery in melee. I guess she has no engineering, but she's also good at hacking and hacking defense. She's got that melee mastery we mentioned, the standard 4 move, the 5 with 1 armor, pretty good looking there. Her green ability here, the Blink 4. So Blink is like a move, but it's a disappear and reappear, so you won't be triggering any Overwatch or things with line of sight. You just sort of disappear and reappear. The Blade Barrier, when she's getting attacked, she can change all her energy results to saves from non-template range attacks. So she's good at blocking range attacks because she can also do that one while also when she's getting attacked with a non-template range attack and it deals no damage, she deals 1 to the attacker. So it's like a sort of a Jedi laser block sort of thing. And finally here, we have Tuba Rayo. So he represents their cybersecurity. So he's really good hacker killer, I guess we'll say. So when an enemy in 6 hex radius performs a hacking test, it has to choose the lower of the dice results. So when you're doing a hack, you roll 2 dice, and you can usually pick the higher. When you're within 6 of him, you have to choose the lower. He's got an okay engineering, but pretty good hacking and excellent hacking defense, which makes sense. Level 1 mastery in both attacks, great armor, and the standard move and health. His forced entry attack, so this is a melee attack, but if he performs damage, he can perform a direct hack against the target, and it can be used in combat. Usually you can't hack in combat. And then he also has his Uzi, range 7, so it attacks with he's got his normal 2 dice, but he gets plus X dice, where X is the target's hacking statistic. So again, he wants to target the stronger hackers on the opponent's team. And this is just a good way to boost that. So he's got this Bite Burn, which is a direct hack, and applies silence to the target enemy in range 8. So once they're silenced, they cannot hack themselves. It also receives X hit, where X is their hacking statistic. So again, if you target them with your melee attack, you can do this direct hack right on them right afterwards. And it's a difficulty 5, which is not too bad considering he has a hack ability of 3. So as long as he's not rolling 1s, he's going to get that Bite Burn on. 33 points. I think this is a really strong guy. I had never used him in GridWars 1, but I'm looking forward to trying him in 2.0. And then he's got his system in ability, which is pretty great. Once per round, when a sentry gun would attack Tubareo with an attack from Overwatch, you may reposition the turret and choose a new target for the attack. So you can just walk through the neutral unit's Overwatch without fear and potentially even put that attack onto an opponent. And the last of the corporation is the intern, who is pretty hilarious to me. I mean, just the expression on his face where he's holding the coffee and a folder full of files, and it looks like he really doesn't want to be here. I like to picture this guy who's gotten in way over his head, interned with the corporation, thinking he's going to work his way up and be rich, but more likely he's going to wind up dead in the grid because he is not cut out for this world. He's not brave, he can run and hide, so one advantage is he can run out of combat, which most people are locked in combat, but he can get away. No engineering skill, no hacking defense, but he is a little bit of a hacker, which is good to know. He's got no mastery in any combat. He can move a little faster than the average character, which is good. No armor and only 3 health, which is desperately on the low side. He's got his easy gun, so it's a range 6 pistol. It's handy, so it can be used in melee, but also it's a plasma weapon, so he can overcharge it. He's got Coffee Run, which is a great ability. It allows the allies in a 4 hex radius to gain 2 energy divide amongst them. You can also pay 1 coin to get 4 energies instead. So that could be really useful for handing out a couple extra energies to a couple stronger characters that either need it for a big attack or potentially a defense roll. He's got Overtime, so he can pay 1 coin to gain an action. I don't know if I would ever use that with him because I don't think I need extra actions with Sheldon the intern. And this is hilarious. The last little one is they've got life insurance on him. So when he is destroyed in the enemy's turn, we gain 3 coins. And 3 is a pretty big boost to the faction. So I think he's great to include at 23 points. He can grab some objectives. Maybe that's where Overtime would come in. You get an extra action to double run to an objective and claim it in the later game if he's still alive. But I don't think he will be, but he only has the 3 health, but your opponent knows that by targeting him, he's going to give you 3 coins. So they may try not killing him. It'll be interesting to see how that plays out as we start seeing a lot more after-action reports of battles in the grid. So that's where I come to the end of the faction preview for Corporation. They're, like I said, one of my favorites, if not my favorite, thematically, and from what I've seen of the units so far. There's a lot here I haven't had a chance to play yet, but I'm looking forward to getting them on the table. I've got most of them printed and painted up, and looking forward to taking them to the grid. So let me know what you guys think of maybe some of the best units are in this faction, or maybe some of the worst ones that you don't see making the table very often. Do you like the Corporation, or do they not appeal to you? Let me know in the comments. I'd love to have a little discussion with this game. I make these videos because I love talking about this game, and yeah, so if we want to create a bit of a conversation, do it down below, but also in the comments you'll see a link to the official, actually technically unofficial Discord for GridWars, but you'll find me there and a lot of other folks who just love talking this game. So thanks again for listening. If you can give it a like, I would appreciate that, and you'll see me in the next review or preview coming soon.